Hello, my name is Henry Munganast, and today I will be speaking to you about open source software. First, I'm going to give you a brief overview of what I will be speaking about today and how they relate to the topic of open source software. I'll start off with a clear definition of what exactly the open source program is and how exactly it works. With a name like open source, it could easily be misinterpreted. Therefore, I'll be clearing up a lot of these misconceptions. Following the definition, I'll speak more to how it is applied in today's world, focusing on Linux, followed closely by how it compares and contrasts to other types of software. Just because both are types of software does not mean they are similar in any means. I'll then talk about the open source initiative's definition. Then, I'll discuss how it is both beneficial to programmers and non-programmers, and touch on remote computing. Then, I'll go into why some programmers prefer open source to classic programs. Finally, I'll finish it off with pros and cons of open source and then a conclusion. So, to answer the question at hand, what is open source? According to the online dictionary, open source refers to something people can modify and share because its design is publicly accessible. Originally, the term originated in the context of software development to designate a specific approach to creating computer programs. Today, however, open source designates a broader set of values which embrace and celebrate principles of open exchange, collaborative participation, rapid prototyping, transparency, and community-oriented development. This allows all programmers to have access to the computer's program source code to improve that by adding features to it or fixing parts that do not work correctly. Simply stated, open source is software with source code that anyone can inspect, modify, and enhance in order to achieve a greater end product. Open source software projects are constructed and maintained by a network of programmers and are widely used in both free and commercial products. Some great examples of this include the Apache HTTP server, the e-commerce platform OS Commerce, and internet browsers such as Mozilla Firefox and Chromium, a branch of Chrome. Most famously, it is OneSource. OneSource is known for its most successful product, the GNU or Linux operating system. Linux was originally developed for personal computers based on the Intel 86 architecture, but has since been implemented to more platforms than any other operating system. Linux is the leading operating system on servers and other big systems such as mainframe computers. However, it is also widely used on personal computers, such as the new Chromebook OS, which is rising quickly in popularity. This program has also been used in the TV industry, with programs such as TiVo and other similar DVR devices. Although open source is a programming tool, it does vary drastically from the typical programming. Some software has source code that only the person, team, or organization who created it can modify, also known as proprietary or closed source software. This is the most original use of programming. Only the original authors of the proprietary software can copy, inspect, and alter that software. For example, Microsoft Office and Adobe Photoshop are examples of proprietary software. Open source is different though. Its authors make its source code available to others who would like to view the code, copy it, learn from it, alter it, or share it. Yes, they may have to accept the terms of a license when they use the software, but these are much more lenient than those of proprietary licenses. Most of the time, open source licenses grant computer users permission to use and edit open source software for any purpose they wish. In general, open source promotes collaboration and sharing because they permit other users to make modifications to source code and incorporate those changes into their own projects. This is much different than the private and, in most cases, secretive programming of software proprietary or closed source software. But they do need some regulations, however. The open source initiative's definition is recognized by governments internationally as the standard or de facto definition. This definition must fit into 10 criteria, which are as follows. Number 1, free redistribution. The license shall not restrict any party from selling or giving away the software as a component of an aggregate software distribution containing programs from several different sources. The license shall not require a royalty or other fee for such sale. Number 2, source code. The program must include source code and must allow distribution in source code as well as compiled form. Number 3 is derived works. The license must allow modifications and derived works, and must allow them to be distributed under the same terms as the license of the original software. Number 4 is integrity of the author's source code. The license may restrict source code from being distributed in modified forms only if the license allows for the distribution of patch files with the source code for the purpose of modifying the programs at build time. The license must explicitly permit distribution of software built from modified source code. The license may require derived works to carry a different name or version number from the original software. Number 5, no discrimination against persons or groups. The license must not discriminate against any person or groups of persons in any way. Number 6, no discrimination against fields of endeavor. The license must not restrict anyone from making use of the program in a specific field of endeavor. For example, it may not restrict the program from being used in a business or from being used for genetic research. Number 7, distribution of license. The rights attached to the program must apply to all to whom the program is redistributed, without the need for execution of an additional license by those parties. Number 8, license must not be specific to any one product. The license attached to the program must not depend on the program's being part of a particular software distribution. If the program is extracted from that distribution and used or distributed within the terms of the program's license, all parties to whom the program is redistributed should have the same rights as those that are granted in conjunction with that original software distribution. Number 9. License must not restrict other software. The license must not place restrictions on other software that is distributed along with the licensed software. For example, the license must not insist that all other programs distributed on the same medium must be open source software. Number 10. License must not be technology neutral. No provision of the license may be predicated on any individual technology or style of interface. All right, well now let's get into the application of open source to the average user. Contrary to popular belief, open source technology and open source thinking benefit both programmers and non-programmers. Just because not everyone isn't programming doesn't mean not everyone is receiving a benefit from using the software. Open source technology is what early inventors and investors built much of the internet itself on. Like the Linux operating system and the Apache web server application mentioned earlier. Every time computer users view web pages, check email, chat with friends, stream music online, or play multiplayer video games, their computers, mobile phones, or gaming consoles connect to a global network of computers using open source software to route and transmit data to the local devices they have in front of them. People rely on remote computers when performing tasks they might otherwise perform on local devices. These include online word processing, email management, and image editing. These computers that do all this important work are usually located in far away places that cannot be accessed, coining them the term remote computers. Remote computers are also known by a much more common name in today's world, cloud computing. This is so because it involves activities like storing files, sharing photos, or watching videos that incorporate not only local devices, but also a global network of remote computers. This is becoming much more prevalent in our lives with the ever-increasing number of internet-connected devices. So just like how I spoke in my last video about the Internet of Things, they are all connected through the open source program. The Internet of Things is connected to cloud computing is connected to remote computers, and remote computers are based off of open source programming. So, even with all these reasons, why exactly do people prefer using open source software? Really, it boils down to 3 reasons. Number 1 is control. You have a lot more control over that kind of software than you would with a proprietary software. Also, you don't have to use it like someone else says you should. It's much more open to what you want to do. Proprietary software is created so that it only has one specific use that the author designates and that you have to use it that way. Open source allows you to be much more open and a lot more creative with how you use it. Number 2 is training. Open source allows developing programmers to help learn and understand programming a lot easier. It's much easier to write, edit, and check than it would be with proprietary software. And finally, number 3 is security. You may think that given open source is available to everyone, that it would be much more insecure or not as safe. But actually, it's on the contrary. Because so many people can check your work and let you know where there are faults in it, it's much more secure at the end of the day. So, let's go into some pros. Open source is free or cheaper than commercial products. It's established by volunteers, so it's much cheaper than buying a program. It's also very reliable, and even though it's cheap and sometimes free, those who create the software are talented individuals, with some ranging from tens to hundreds working on the same projects. Some cons? It's not very user-friendly. It can be hard to understand if you're coming into it with fresh feet, but you have to be much more knowledgeable about the topic at hand to understand it. And also, there's not a lot of tech support. This program is established by volunteers, so if you have any difficulties with it, you have to contact them directly. If you have an immediate difficulty, it can be hard to get a hold of these people because it's not their job 24/7 to help you fix your problems. So, in conclusion, although open source can be difficult to understand and not fully structured like a well-oiled machine, it does have and has provided vital breakthroughs through volunteers that have advanced the technological field vastly and provided for us to live a much easier life. Thank you very much for your time.